I think it's going to. Okay, there we go. Well done, Kylie. So, firstly, welcome along to everybody tonight. I certainly hope you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be a bit of a fun session. It's going to be an opportunity for everybody to relax, but also hopefully learn a little bit about three major areas: public image, branding, and communication. So we hope you're going to really enjoy yourselves tonight. I want to make it more interactive than lecture style. So I'm going to give everybody an opportunity during the course of the meeting where I'll get out of the PowerPoint presentation and give us a chance to have a bit of a chat. So what I find is the most important thing for all of us is to get the most out of it. We need you to contribute to it. So please feel free, you're amongst friends, please feel free to contribute to it and have your say. We're really keen to hear what your views are. And of course, it gives us an opportunity also to learn from each other on this. So feel free. And I think what I'll do is I'll share my screen and we'll start the ball rolling and we'll give you an opportunity just to see what we're going to do. So. Okay, so I'll just share the screen. Okay, so hopefully everybody can now see the screen. There we go.
Geez, what a great picture, Peter.
I thought you might find that familiar there, right?
You know who to suck up to. Those of you who don't know, that's my club on the left.
It is indeed. Yeah, that wouldn't be your club on the right. I think that's the crew from Emerald. So, yeah, so welcome again, guys, to the Public Image and Communications training session. And of course, the first part which we'll be chatting about is, of course, public image. You know, every company or service organisation has a public image. And I guess whilst our image we think is reality, it's still built on perception. And I think it's the perception that others have of us that we can really influence. And that's because everybody has a public image, but some have what they term a good public image and others perhaps not so good. And of course, if you ask me, you know, what would be the thing that I would put up as our public image? I'd probably say something like, we're volunteers, we're having fun, and we're part of a great organisation. And I guess we can provide and promote a positive public image by doing a few things. And please feel free, as we're talking about it, please feel free to make note, write on your iPads, because then we can actually share some ideas later on as well. So the first thing I'd say to you is talk to people about the work that we do in the community. You know, it's really easy when you go to one of your projects, and it might be something as simple as a Bunnings sausage sizzle all the way through to a market, where you talk to people who come up to you and ask about, say, for example, a sausage sizzle, or if they want to get a sausage, tell them that you're actually that money that's going to that sausage sizzle is actually something for a cause that you're associated with. I know in my club, for example, we were saying to people as they bought their humble sausage that this is great. Thank you so much, sir, for buying this. The proceeds are going to the earthquake victims in Turkey. What we found was, guys, which was interesting, we found quite a number of people said, oh, okay, well, look, I might put a few dollars extra if that's okay. And we actually raised a whole range of money, which we didn't expect, simply by telling them a little bit about what we do. Of course, we advertise our activities widely. And the reason we do that, of course, is whether we've got Facebook or our webpage, it provides people some knowledge about what we are and what we do. Like, we all know as Rotarians what we do, but it's often the case that the public perhaps have a very small view of what we actually do. And that's because they're largely uneducated. So it's great to be able to advertise them from a whole range of social media types. And finally, proudly wear our Rotary garments, whether it's a jacket, whether it's a polo, whether it's a hat, into the public places or on your project days. And what you're going to find is they're going to see good people who are walking around with their Rotary gear on. And again, it gives them a great image of what we do. Because a positive image promotes recognition, it creates trust, it inspires existing members, because all the members of your team and all you guys tonight are representing your team members. They want to feel proud that they actually belong to a service club. Of course, it can help generate new members as well, because what they want to do, they want to be part of the action as well. New sponsors, of course, a lot of sponsors now are looking for clubs that they can associate with. So it's a great opportunity to see if you guys can actually look at getting into new sponsors. And of course, we're gender inclusive. We include both male and female into our ranks. And of course, we don't mind where you come from. It's just important to be part of Rotary. And of course, your club can learn more about developing its public image by just simply attending district seminars like you're doing at the moment. Go to other clubs. I often find when I go to other clubs, I actually learn quite a bit from them. The clubs are really welcoming, and you'll find that when you go down there, you might pick up one or two hints about the way in which they go to other events, other projects, and it might really help you. Obviously, you can read your club newsletters. You can engage with local council and businesses. Local councils are really good. I find that if you look at local councils at the moment, everybody's got them. They're always keen to put us on their billboards, on their community letters. So please feel free to engage in those type of local councils and businesses. Always promote consistent branding, and you'll find that you can use have a look at other clubs' websites and Facebook, and of course there's Learning Centre resources as well, which will also help you. Okay, so it's discussion time. So let's see if we can down there. Okay. Okay, so let's have a chat about public image itself. Let me ask you a question, and I'll open this to anybody at the moment. What do you think others' perception is of us when they think about Rotary? What do you think that their perception of us is? I'll open it up. And if nobody says anything, I'll nominate you.
We get a lot of people saying, oh, you guys do such a good job.
Yep.
But that's about it. They don't know what, they don't really know what we do, but we get that all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. You guys do a really good job. I reckon we get half a dozen of those at least when we have a market and our sausage sizzle. Probably more than that.
There is limited value, isn't there, as far as what they actually perceive us to be. I mean, it is something which we all know when we're on our projects, what we're doing, but it's a challenge, isn't it, to see with other people who perhaps haven't been involved in Rotary or a service club, what they think about us. I mean, if you are going to tell something, let me turn it around them. So if we're going to turn it around in the other way, somebody says to you, what is Rotary? What do you guys say? What are the key words that you use? I mean, I obviously use things like community-minded, caring, those type of things. What do you guys say about us in terms of what we do and what we are as an organisation? Ian, you can lead off.
Who was that?
Ian Ballantyne. So what do you reckon, Ian, if somebody says to you, what's Rotary, mate? What do you like me to let rip with?
Yeah, Peter, great point. And I've often remind members, my own members and anybody who'll listen, that we've always got to be ready with an answer, because often you will get asked and you just say, oh, we're a community service club and, Be aware of what your club does, because generally you're probably going to be speaking to somebody in your local community. So if you can list off several of your major projects, instead of just saying, oh, we're a community service organisation, you just say, we do this, we help this mob, we do this, we do this, we do this. That's what people, I don't know whether they want to hear, but that's what they need to hear. The other aspect too is to remind people that we are not just a local community organisation, but we are a worldwide organisation making a difference in the world. And I often refer to this as the point of difference that Rotary has. different to a lot of other groups, be they small volunteer groups, whatever it might be. Rotary, you're part of an organisation that can actually or is making a difference all over the world. And that's something which we often forget when we're just talking about our local community.
Yeah.
Enough for me.
Peter, we've done an exercise in our club to come up with an elevator pitch, the
Yep.
thing that we can and get consistency. And it's clearly, to Ian's point, you need to be able to bring back to the local community what you're doing. But it's really interesting when you hear everybody has a different, because obviously everybody has a different, reason for joining Rotary and why it is. But it's a good exercise to do in a club to see whether you can come up with something that people can then, use when they actually meet people in the street. And
Absolutely. And have, try anyway to have something on you, a pamphlet. Most clubs will print a little pamphlet of some sort. Just make sure everybody in the club has got them, so they can at least say, just wait on a sec, or, here you are, have this. And, or, Google the club name or something to find your website. And no doubt, Peter, you're going to be talking about websites shortly. That if you are going to be directing people to your website, make sure that it's worthwhile going to. But you're right, Colin. I totally agree. We've got to be ready all the time to speak. And the other point I was going to make was going back, I don't know, let's say 20, 30, 40 years, Rotary's brand was so well known. Everybody knew what Rotary was. It was such a well-known and respected organisation. I don't think we can rely on the same recognition that we used to, that we have to lift our game. I think like a lot of companies or corporations or organisations, we've relied a little bit too much on the historical recognition of the brand, that there are so many competitors now, and we have to make sure that we continue to push the brand. The wearing the uniform with the logo and stuff like that, it's so important.
Agreed. Yeah, good point, Ian. Chris, I think you had a question or a response.
No, excuse me. No, it was sort of following on almost from what Ian was saying. I think we often talk about what we do. We don't necessarily talk about how we do it. That point about the importance of networks, that because we are an international organisation, we can get at all sorts of things, but also we also have our local networks, be it into other Rotary clubs, into other organisations within our local community, within local government. And we do it by bringing people together to meet, to tackle an identified need. So it's not just us. We can be the catalyst as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important point to make.
No, quite agree, Chris. Trish, I think you're next in line there. Trish, have you got a comment or a question?
Yeah, I've found that personally, I found that I discovered a really amazing tool after all the fires and everything and the issues with money going in the wrong areas and stuff, that if I tell people who we are, which is basically what you're all talking about, but then I also say to them, the sausage you buy today, I can guarantee 100% of that is going back to help the local community. And they get, well, really, what about administration? And then I start explaining how Rotary works without the administration. I've found people are absolutely fascinated and really impressed that it's not a Red Cross and it's, things like that. And that's been a really good tool.
Yeah. Sometimes, Trish, I agree. Sometimes they're surprised, aren't they? And then yes. I think they're delighted, because the thing that all of us do, we have different causes that we're supporting, and these changes from month to month, and I think it's great because a lot of the causes that we do support are very worthwhile causes which are topical at the time. So I think that it really does make sense to actually talk to the people about it, and we often find, and I'm sure Tricia and all the other club members would find the same thing, that the people and the general public are actually very keen to hear about what we are doing. So it does make a difference for sure. And I would certainly recommend that you take back to your clubs that opportunity of talking to them a little bit, not to bore them to death on it, but to talk to them a little bit about some of the great work that we do. Diane, I believe you've got your hand up as well.
Thank you. The other one, which I don't think I've heard, is that core component in, theoretically, it's called the golden circle, but the why. You can actually engage somebody in the why. It's a sense of vulnerability when you're actually talking about it, not who are we, what do we do, but why do we do what we do? Why am I part of this? Why do I think this is somewhere where I want to spend my most valuable time, being my discretionary private time? And it's that it's that why that is really hard to find in a lot of the things that we have worked with up until now. And to your point, Ian, if you look back at Rotary in the 70s and 80s, and my association goes back to being an exchange student, so I've kind of been across it for a number of decades. There was no why at that point in time. You became a Rotarian because you were the leader in your area as picked by other leaders in their areas. You were tapped on the shoulder and you became a Rotarian. I don't know whether anybody remembers the series Sea Change, where the local real estate agent, who was the epitome of all things that fail the 4-way test, but he was the local Rotarian as well.
Oh, God.
And it was pointing fun at it. It was doing, but it actually was the here and now perception, particularly in the Australian environment, in terms of what Rotary represented. You know, a bunch of people who came together, had lunch and talked to each other and did stuff, a lot of it with checkbooks, and that puts time on the conversation as well. But none of that talks to why. Why? Because we make a difference. Why? Because I know that, you know, in foundation, there's only 5% that goes to admin. Why? Because this is an environment where I know I can do anything that I want to. I can do it environmentally. I can do it for poverty. I can do it for academic excellence. I can do it for whatever reason. I think we're losing track of that why principle. And it's hard. I won't begin to try and explain it as being easy. The why is really, really hard because it's vulnerable.
No, good. Good point, Diane. And I think the other part of it too is that we're then promoting the perception of them about us, because we are explaining why we do things and the way we do things. So I think they're really good points. Okay, let's resume the share. So we'll get back on there again. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about our brand. Why is our brand name and our logo even important? Well, it's important because it's really unique. And of course, we're instantly recognised by it. You know, guys, every major company in the world is known by its brand. Some companies, what they do is they develop and they rebrand to pitch to a new audience. And I wanted to give you an example of what I mean by that. If you ever look at the old BP logo, BP, of course, stands for British Petroleum. They wanted to change it. And the reason that they wanted to change their logo, as you can see the one on the right-hand side there, it's because they wanted to become more environmentally responsible. You know, they brought in unleaded petrol. You can see the logo there. It's actually like a flower. So what they're trying to say to us is that they are a clean, green type of company. BP is underscored in terms of being in lowercase rather than the thing that strikes you as in the first logo. And whilst it might not be completely true, and of course, as we know, petroleum is still one of the major polluters around, from their perspective, it's actually giving them a different perspective, and their perception, or what they want for the perception that we have of them, is, oh, they're responsible, they're clean and they're green, and that's how we're going to operate. Amazon on the other side, when they first started out, what they did is they had something, as you can see, it looks a little bit like the Amazon River. Why? Because what they wanted to do was to make their appearance to be, we are a large company. But as they became a large company, what they did was they said, right, we need to change the dynamics of the way in which we market ourselves. So what they did is they've put the Amazon, as you can see in bold, the orange arrow there, which actually draws the eye to the Amazon name. And of course, .com, well, we all know that that means you can buy online. And that's really important because what it says to you just by seeing that logo is that you're dealing with one of the largest companies in the world. We're all online. We can get you pretty much any product that you require.
From A to Z.
Yeah, from A to Z. But
Very
others, of
clever.
course, they never change. And the reason that they don't change is because it's all about simplicity and recognition. If I said to everybody in the room, what do you think if I told you about Rolls Royce? Everybody would have the same sort of, it's status. It's the opportunity to see something which is an expensive, well-made car. It's probably one of the most recognized logos in the world. And if you've got one of those, if you're driving around in one of those Rolls Royces, you know that you've made it in terms of status. Coke, on the other hand, what they say is you can get a Coca-Cola in any country in the world and it is exactly the same product. It's a little bit similar to what you get in the McDonald's type advertising as well. And so that's the way that they market their products, a little bit different. Some need rebranding and some don't. Rotary brand, well, it has made some subtle changes over the years. And as everybody would know, it adorns things like our jackets all the way down to our drink holders. So who benefits from wearing our brand and using our brand? Well, I think firstly, I'd say it's our current club members, because what it does, it gives everybody a sense of belonging to a great organisation. Some of our sponsors, people like Bendigo Bank, of course, want to be seen as a good corporate and social responsibility type company. And they're promoting that by using our logos on their own areas of responsibility. And they sort of see us as being a great community partner. And I think most of the clubs, if not all, we've all got relationships currently with the Bendigo Bank. And of course, people are continually searching for large service organisations. They like to be part of a group that they feel can do some good, can make a difference in the world. So I guess the main message for all of you to take back to your clubs is, please keep your club brands current. And that's everything from your websites all the way through to your emails. Keep them current because it's really important. If in doubt, just go through our brand centre, and that's based on Rotary International. Many of you are very familiar with that. I won't go through them all, but it gives you an opportunity to go through the brand centre and have a look at the way in which we set up. And of course, along with our brand also comes the new theme. And the reason we do that is that the theme gives a fresh impetus to our club members, our club teams and our districts. And of course, in Ian's year, it's going to be create hope in the world. I think it's a great theme, by the way, with the key word being hope. And I think that's a terrific opportunity. And you can see Ian there, resplendent, right next to the world president, Gordon. And I think you can see that it's a great opportunity for us, again, to go forward with the next theme, from Imagine through to Create Hope in the World. Okay, so let's talk about that again, and we'll just. Okay, so when we're looking at brand, can I ask everybody? Yes, and this is it's not meant to be right or wrong, good or bad, but do you guys change your theme each year? And particularly when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about your websites, your letterheads, your signatures on your emails. Do you guys tend to change it? Is there? If you do, yep. So Barry, I can see you nodding, and Louise, you're nodding. So you guys, do you actually get that to your clubs on July 1 when the new district comes in, or does it take a bit of time? Barry, how do you find it with changing them over?
I usually try to change it as close to July as possible. sort of be ready in June and then have it ready to fly. So I go through the website, for instance, and wherever the theme is, change it from year to year.
Yeah, great.
And,
Louise, what about Knox? How does it? How do you arrange it for the Knox Club?
I haven't done it before, but it's just been a sort of, oh, you really should be doing this. And I always change my email sign off, but I don't think many people are savvy enough to be able to use templates and that for their emails. They just use their phones or something for an email. And yeah, I always do when I'm sending out official stuff, but I don't know how many other people do.
Mm.
I set it up in my signature for email accounts so that that it happens automatically.
Yeah, Diane, I think you have your hand up.
Yes, goes back about 4 or 5 years ago. There was something of a push in the marketing space, which was, and the broad message was, the theme should be an internal promotion to give a focus for the Rotary members to address the different things and put a new theme on it, and that our external should continue to be, and this will probably draw correction because I'm not 100%, but the principles were keep the service above self and the Rotary International as being the world around you, because the Rotary making a difference, service, Rotary making a difference, create hope in the world, change lives, join Rotary, all of those on a 365-day rotation is just creating confusion in the marketplace. Now, has that essence evaporated, or is it still the principle that's there? Because, certainly some of the signature blocks and things in Box Hill Central get changed along the way. But do we go out to the world with a changed letterhead? No, we've got a Rotary Club of Box Hill Central, Rotary International logo on it, full stop, end of story.
Yep.
And occasionally we'll draw the essence like Imagine as part of the pitch that we do. It's a great way of, if you're doing, we're going to do something, so imagine if everybody does 4 of these, imagine if everybody does 5 of these. So we actually use it as soft marketing, but again, it's marketing back to the internal market. Now, am I behind the times, or is that still the essence of where we're going?
What you're saying, Diane, makes perfect sense. And this is one of those situations, isn't it, where we're all so close to what Rotary is doing and what's going on, we don't even notice that. But to the general public, if they see this becoming a dominant thing, it will be confusing. So it underlines the point, doesn't it, Peter, that the Rotary logo must always be dominant. And yet, look behind me, it's the same size.
Yeah.
But that's because we're generally talking internally. But to the general public, you're very right, Diane, it just becomes confusing. And we must be very careful about that. Fortunately, it's so hard to change things like letterhead. I want to say no, so hard, you know what I mean? You tend to just leave it. That's great, because if it's different every time, it does get confusing. So we've got to remember that on a websites and what have you, the Rotary logo must remain totally dominant. But very good point, Diane. And I can't give you an answer. I mean, I don't know of a policy because so much emphasis gets put on the new theme to Rotarians, but perhaps we're overlooking what's being projected onto the general public. So maybe back to you, Peter. What's your opinion on that?
I'll let Colin have. I think Colin also has his hand up. So, Colin, do you have a response on that as well?
No, I totally agree with Diane and Ian. I think it really dilutes when we have all these logos, and what also makes it work. And I used to work for a large US corporation where the brand was the brand. I mean, all the internal stuff. Rotary, we have all these acronyms for, I spent 5 years in ROMAC. We were pushing ROMAC, which, look, it's a whole ROMAC, Rotary Oceania Medical Aid for Kids. but it's Rotary. It should just be Rotary for kids. I mean, we go out and all parts of the organisation pushes there almost like a sub brand at times, and it loses, you know, we lose the general public, and we lose our audience with all these different
Right.
these different themes.
Very
And to your
true.
point, Diane, I think it really, you know, these themes should be internal. They are just, again, motivators for the general Rotary population, but it shouldn't be seen outside the organisation. So
That's what I was about to say too, Colin. I felt that they are internal motivators, and I think everybody makes a really good point that, and of course, because I think you're a district international president, which is different, so they want to make a different stance. They want to try and capture the imagination of everybody in the world, because obviously it's a worldwide theme.
Yeah,
So it's interesting that they're trying to do these differences,
Yeah,
but
but
certainly for our
I think I
Rotary,
have to-
we would want that to be the
but I
same
think
everywhere.
Diane's made the very good point, and I tend to agree that all of that is, in my opinion, being projected upon the membership. It's a way of re-stimulating enthusiasm within the membership each year. And you're quite right. I mean, in terms of promoting a brand to the public, that's the last thing you should be doing. You should just be sticking with the one brand and keeping it consistent, and leaving Creating Hope and those themes as an internal thing. So we've got to be a little careful how much we want to see it updated on websites and that, but it must not be dominant, you know?
Yeah,
It's
right, agree.
interesting, isn't it?
Trish, I think you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Whilst, yes, I think the Rotary brand is got to be dominant, no doubt. I would wonder whether something like Create Hope in the World actually speaks to the younger people in the society rather than Rotary. Because a lot of them are cause-based volunteers, does the fact of, you know, when especially in a situation at the moment with, you know, people struggling with money and that, do the words in this case, Create Hope, make a huge difference and speak to a different group of people? So I sort of think you should use both, but maintain certainly the Rotary logo as your dominant logo, and then maybe pepper it with a few little things with Create Hope, etc., etc.
True. I mean, I think where you notice it the most, Trish, is when I think a lot of the district governors use them for banners, for example, that take them to the clubs, have them as a backdrop there. And I think you tend to find that they are a support mechanism rather than the total branding of it. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, to get people's view on that. So
We've just got to remember what we're projecting to the general public.
exactly.
And Diane's point about confusion is very valid.
Yeah. No, agreed. All right, guys, we'll keep things moving. So we'll resume the share for you, and we'll talk to you a little bit about the final part of our discussions tonight, which is communications within our district. So how do we like to communicate to others about our club activities? I guess the first port of call for just about everybody is via email. But I think what we've always found is that with emails, people tend to scan but not read them. I think for all of you, and pretty much everybody has been in business, we've all been in companies, both large and small, and you know what it's like if you're sending a lot of emails out to people. They'll tend to scan those emails, and I think there's been a few managing directors that I've dealt with over the time that have said, if it's any longer than half a page, mate, I'm not reading it. So, so you've just got to be careful and succinct about what the type of message you're trying to promote or give to others is succinct, and it does capture their interest and imagination when you're actually writing them. Emails can also be a very cold medium, and what you tend to find is, if you're ever going to be misunderstood, it's generally in an email. It's something that I know for all of us, I've done it, I'm sure you have as well, where you've written something and it's perhaps not quite the intention that you put down, but the way it reads is quite different. So it is something, guys, when we are writing emails, we just need to be aware of and trying to just to think about it before we actually send it off to people. The other part I would hasten to add is that a lot of people get CC'd into emails that perhaps they don't need to be a part of, and and I would leave that to your discretion as to how you see that. But that is something that I know in business, so we used to have that quite a bit in emails. Traditionally, of course, we've used brochures to advertise our activities, and we can still do that. For those of you who go on to Brand Centre, you can still design from some of the templates that they have in the Brand Centre any of your brochures, and you can actually get some of those types of information that they might need to have that. But you can also look at other cheaper alternatives to advertise our brand on business cards. So you can do things like add a QR code, which will actually get the person to visit the website. You can talk about where you meet, phone numbers. You can even put a tagline on the back of the card. And of course, they're easy to carry. And what you'll find is that with brochures, and I'm not saying this on every occasion, but certainly a lot of people, brochures of any kind, not just ours, tend to end up in that round filing cabinet. So it is something that people are trying to move away from. And of course, your costing of those can be quite a bit cheaper. And you can also use it. I noticed there were a few clubs, for example, that actually wanted to put in 10 reasons to join Rotary onto the back of their card. And so they put some of those ideas that they give to people, and when they turned over the card, they could actually learn a little bit more about what we do as a club. You can also consider other forms of branding too, and I'm sure a lot of you use those. I know that for people like guest speakers, for example, you can get everything from personalised pens to mugs to key rings. One of the things that a lot of companies now utilise are fridge magnets, where you can actually put these on the fridge with your club name, perhaps with an address or at least somewhere where you meet, for example. You can use those to your advantage because people tend to keep their fridge magnets more than anything else. I know I do. And of course, some of the clubs this year have earned the gifts through the rewards program as well. So let me just summarise the three major points that we've spoken about tonight. The first is create a positive public image with everyone you meet. And I think, you know, everybody in the room, you know, you're genuinely good people. You are people that care about others. And of course, isn't it great to be able to create that same sort of positive public image with anybody you come across? And I think everybody here is a real credit to our organisation. Try and make sure that your club brand is also up to date where you can, because it really does take a little bit of time, but it is certainly worth it in the end. And of course, the final part is to communicate efficiently to others using a whole variety of methods, from our social media all the way through to our website. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to stop the share and we'll get everybody back on here as well. Okay, so the idea is at the moment we can look at those three aspects to it. Tell me this. Do you believe that we communicate effectively to each other? Now, if we talk about emails, for example, give me some examples, guys. Do you feel that we're able to communicate? I can see Ian smiling it. Do you feel we can communicate effectively with our use of emails? Or do you feel we overdo it? What's the general consensus there in terms of our communication? Go on, Ian. I know you were itching to...
I tell you, I'm just going to say straight off the top, one of my pet hates is reply all.
Yep.
Please think twice before you hit reply all. Is it really necessary to reply to everybody? Because, you know, obviously why. Think about it. Just have some time, just take some time to think about the recipient of the email. Was it really necessary, you know? Yep. Because your point before, the more we flood each other and everybody, the less likely we are to actually read them, and we can miss important ones. So, you know, we just got to think first, that's all.
Yep.
But, you know, it's a brilliant form of communication. You've got a trail, it's great. You know, it's so much better. As much as I like talking on the phone, at least with email, you've got a great trail, you've got a record of what was said, which is terrific.
Yeah, agreed.
Please,
Agreed.
no reply all.
Yeah, Chris, I can see your hand up there. You have to go off mute though, Chris. That's it.
Yeah, I think Diane was first.
Oh, Diane.
And just a couple of things. I go back to the point that I've made earlier.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the thing that is missing in our communication is the why. You know, hello, Ian, hope you're well. Wasn't the weekend fantastic? Yep, lovely, courteous, but so far you've given 2 lines of nothing. Whereas if you can start with, the purpose of this is to engage you in, here are the details, this is brief, can we have a conversation? Then you know what it is, why it is, when it is.
Actually, yeah, good point, Diane. And subject, you know,
A subject
about
that's
the
meaningful.
subject.
Yep.
I tell you, I still get emails from people without anything in the subject, and I just find it, well, it's plain rude for a start, but you know, it just makes it easier when you're scanning through your emails. Make sure the subject means something, you know. And look, just on that, when people send bulletins, just don't say our club bulletin, you know, identify who it is, club bulletin for the, you know, from the Rotary Club of blah, blah, blah. Just common sense. But good point, Diane. Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that I use, and one is I have my mailbox and I use Outlook. So I'm not sure about some of the others, but I have the ability to set up a rule that says, if I'm in the CC box, stick it in a folder, and about once every 2 weeks, I go through that folder. So I don't see anything that you've CC'd me in, because I'm assuming I'm a CC. You're either,
They're not looking for a response.
yeah, you're either copying me in because the audience wants to know that I've been told about it, or you've got some other motive. So if I'm a CC, I don't see it unless I go looking for it. And then the other one is I have another note that is, unless I am in the 2 box, delete.
Right.
So, and that is often part of those reply alls.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of that will just, so that enables me to manage very quickly. Now, sure, I missed some stuff, but it wasn't that important if I was part of a CC, if I was part of a reply all.
Yep. Very good.
Just a
point.
couple of tricks. And I make people aware of it, you know, particularly when the first conversation comes along, I sent you this, we trace through where it went.
Yeah.
And I do this is why I haven't responded. You
Yep.
weren't talking to me.
Yep. Very
Good points, Diane. Very good points. Chris, you've definitely got your hand up there. So
Right, yeah, that point I think about the subject line is really important. Hey, make sure it's there and make sure that's the point where you've got to get somebody's attention. So make sure it does. You know, not something that's very general and what the hell is that about? You've got sort of, I don't know, 2 seconds to grab somebody's attention, and that's got to be in the subject line.
Yeah.
And also with the email, unless it's a very simple reply that's about, yes, I will be there, you know, a straightforward reply. If you are sending an email that's a bit more complicated, yeah, do it, but don't send it. You know, wait 10 minutes, read it again. Can I edit this down? Can I take stuff out? Can I clarify it?
Yeah.
So I've learned through times of bitter experience, you put something together, you think it's wonderful, you send it, and then you read it half an hour later and go, oh God, that wasn't very good.
It creates more problems than, yeah, it's worth. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
well, can I ask everybody in the room then? And I'm probably more particularly if it's just to one person as opposed to 50 people. But if you've got an email to one person, what's your ratio of actually phone call to email? I mean, what's your preferred mode of operation in terms of getting into your communication to somebody? What do you feel, guys? What's Diane? What's your preferred method of operation?
If I've got something that comes to mind, like somewhere after 8:30 tonight,
yeah,
I'll drop that in a quick email to somebody to say, I'm thinking about this, and I'll put it on my list when we catch up next week. But I've given them a heads up that here it comes. Or if I've rung and they've not been there, I will often leave a message that says, sorry, I missed you. I'll pop this into an email, let's talk next week. So that oftentimes it's a one-to-one for that basis to get the information shared. It's me being selfish. I have now communicated with you, so it's over to you to come back to me rather than me chasing you for a phone call.
Right. Yeah, Chris?
If it's finding in our club more and more now, we're using, if it's a short one-on-one SMS, not emails anymore.
Yeah.
'Cause It's,
Or
it's
WhatsApp.
just
Oh,
more-
SMS, yep.
WhatsApp, yeah.
Yep.
Colin, your view?
Look, Chris took my, is exactly right. Club members I don't think they read emails most of the time anyway. And I think it's more direct, just doing an SMS or, and keep it brief. But in my form of communication is, again, if it's in business hours, to call a person. I think it saves a lot. And more organisations in the world now are doing away with, I used to work, I had 300 emails a day, that's the lot. You don't actually, you're not productive at all if you're just responding and writing them. So we need to be a bit more disciplined in the way we, communicate and make it more effective as well. So.
Yeah. And of course, the thing with a phone call or a face-to-face is clearly that you can get your point across much easier than what you can in an email in any event. What Diane said before was quite right. So you want to keep it short, sharp, and to the point. But sometimes when you read it, the intention is to keep it short, sharp, and to the point. But they might think, geez, she's feeling pretty unfriendly today, and so you read things in that perhaps aren't even there. So it's interesting, isn't it, to the methods of our communication. And I guess this is something which, even for your own club members, you need to be aware of what is the most effective communication. And of course, all of us, we've all been in business. We've all done many courses on effective communication. It changes from situation to situation, but it's interesting to know that probably with our reliance on the electronic communications at the moment, that more people just rely on emails because it's just quicker and easier. Kylie, your thoughts?
Peter, I'm just going to link to Diane's comment around purpose.
Yeah.
And I think the key thing in terms of interpreting your emails is around tone and innuendo and perception, people's perception of what content's in there. And so I think a lot of the time emails can be misconstrued, and that's where conflict can arise. And certainly, I think there's an important note around call to action. What do you want to do? What do you want me to do with this information? If you're sharing this with me, am I just to note it? Am I to do something about it? Am I to arrange a phone call, follow it up? What am I doing with this information? And sometimes they're the things that we tend to miss, or we hide our message in somewhere in the message, but we're actually not being very clear in our communication. That's certainly my experience.
Yeah, I agree, Kylie. And of course, the other thing is for all of us, if you get BCC'd in, I sometimes wonder, why am I being BCC'd in? Which, as you know, is a blind carbon copy. So it's, I sometimes wonder about those. But anyway, so that's the way of the world. Ian, good to see you. Yes, you've got a comment as well.
Likewise, Pete. Yeah, just I'm going to offer a slightly different perspective over some of the things. Yeah, there's no doubt that we often over communicate using email. But one of the things I would say that is, if you are addressed directly, if an email reaches out to you, I'd strongly suggest that you do respond. I still see a lot of emails go out and don't get responded to. And what happens then is the person then has to send again and follow up, or did I miss it? And it causes an awful lot more churn rather than just actually saying either, no, I can't respond to that right now, or I'll get back to you later, or give a quick brief summary and say, let's talk about it some other time. But I see that fact that emails just get overlooked, and I don't know if it's to do with email management or what the reason is. But it doesn't look very good. And when people do respond, it's not only validating, it actually speeds up communications as well. And especially if everybody here is in charge of their respective areas, I think it's even more important that we as leaders in that function are responsive to requests for feedback, information, or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And of course, that's the last thing you want, isn't it? And you don't want to be written to 3 times on the same subject. And people saying, yeah, how come you haven't responded? Oh, I haven't read it, you know. So yeah, you know, Diane.
In some of the training that is done through the Australian Institute of Company Directors, one of the things that was put forward, and it was put forward in a very quirky way, but it stuck with me, was just remember every email you write might be a letter to a judge you haven't met.
Yeah, well, good point.
So, you know, if you've got that in mind at the point of time where you've sort of gone, right, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, Kylie made the point, you know, the aggression and you know, I've seen some horrendous things go through clubs. That principle that absolutely everything that you ever put out is fully recoverable, regardless of what you do with it. And it can be presented in any light at any point in time, well into the future.
Yeah.
So that
That's a
short
really good
form,
point. Yeah.
every email might be a letter to a judge you haven't met.
Yeah, agreed. So what does it tell us as a group? It tells us we have to be mindful, not only the types of communication we have, but also the way in which we communicate to others. Because as you say, it's not just what we're writing. It could be an internal email, but if we're sending out externally, and a lot of us, I'm sure all of you, are sending out external emails, other types of communications, SMSs, even your communication on things like your website. They're for others to read and interpret. So it's really important. Even things, and Michael, I might even put you into the conversation here. In the newsletters, for example, how do you find it when the clubs are writing and they're putting in, say, newsletters and that? Do you find you have to vet those, or do you find that, oh, I can accept what they've put in there? I mean, how do you sort of go about looking at those type of items and then making a judgment call on when they're going to be published in the district website?
Well, the good news is I only get about 4 newsletters from clubs anyway. So to go first half hour, it's finished already. So the worst part is there's the only 2,000 emails that come after those 4 emails because everyone else is trying to tell me to do something. And at the moment, I've still got 2,500 emails still to read, which I'll have to go through still. And for Ian, I'll try and answer back his emails with everyone. But I think what's important is, I know everyone gets my highlights. If you look at the highlights, it's got a nice heading on it. It's got District 9810 events schedule, the highlights April. And as soon as you open it, you see the Rotary highlights and Imagine Rotary straight in your face. So I assume that attracts attention. And I think that's probably more important that when you do open it, oh, it is interesting. I'm going to look at this one. And the other thing I find, like you're right, the subject is very important because if there's no subject line, I just delete it. I don't even read them because it could be a spam, it could be anything. So I don't know those ones up. So if you want to tell me something, you got to put a good subject in there that it makes me open it up in the first place.
Yep.
Yeah, agreed. Very good. Well, look, guys, I think we're just about at that time where we're going to close off. If anybody has any final comments they'd like to make, perhaps Ian, if you'd like to make some final comments on the class. You've been a fantastic class, I've got to say, Ian. This is the best class of the lot for all the people here. So thank you so much for being a part of it tonight, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And Ian, I'll just hand over to you as our incoming district governor, and you can perhaps sign off for it.
Thanks, Peter. Well, my congratulations to you for running a great session. A lot of good discussion. So many times, well, actually, I won't say so many times. It's rare that we can't get Rotarians talking. Everyone's usually got something to say. But, you know, we can't underestimate or can't overstate the importance of public image. The brand is so important. It's such a valuable brand. We must protect it and respect it. But very, very good point. Great session. Really good ideas too. I've taken a lot of notes. Notes about the emails, I think, is all good. It's a problem we're all facing. And, you know, these are sorts of sessions I'd like to see run at a president's meeting because we've all got something to contribute. And but great session. And I thank everyone for attending and making a contribution. Terrific. And once again, Peter, well done.
No, thanks very much. And
For those
Ian,
of you who don't know, by the way, Peter is our district governor nominee designate. So Peter will be taking the chair in 2025-26. I think I'm right. Is that right, Peter?
oh, it's a long time.
It's years and years off.
It's years to go.
But Peter will be following Colin, and because by that time, or particularly for Colin, it'll be a new district 9815, and Peter's going to be taking over after that. So terrific work, Peter, and my congratulations. Thank you.
No, that's great. And as I say, guys, thanks very much, because I think without you coming tonight and without you contributing, it's just not the same session. So thank you guys for doing it, and we look forward to seeing you certainly at the changeover conference. Should be great, and we're looking forward to it all.
Thanks, mate. Thank you very much.
Okay, see you
Peter,
later,
just
everybody.
getting to practice for the 3,000